Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our conversation as Malaysia assumes chair of ASEAN in 2025. So how should we approach the Myanmar crisis? Let's ask Professor Emeritus Johan Saravanamuttu, Adjunct Professor at Universiti Malaya's Asia-Europe Institute. Professor Johan, thank you so much for being on the show with me. So Malaysia is going to assume the ASEAN chair in 2025. I'm wondering, what would you like to see Malaysia as chair prioritize in addressing the Myanmar crisis?
Yeah, thanks, Melisa, for inviting me to share my thoughts on this. I have actually looked a little bit into this myself, and I think Malaysia would have a very significant role in terms of carrying on what has already been sort of started in a way, initiated by particularly the Indonesian period when Indonesia was chair of ASEAN. This was a year back before Laos took over as chair, and the kind of I think policies I would like to see Malaysia carry forward is this multi-track, multi-level engagement with all the key stakeholders, not just with the SAC. So as we know, under the 5-point consensus, it doesn't state exactly who the ASEAN chair or the ASEAN as a whole is to engage with. But Indonesia has taken the project forward by engaging with some of the political protagonists or actors in the resistance, for example, right? In Myanmar's political situation today is called the resistance, resisting the military junta, which is now represented by the SAC. So I think we should definitely continue the engagement with the NUG, the National Unity Government, and the NUCC, which is the larger platform consisting of all the various resistance forces in Myanmar, including the ethnic revolutionary organizations.
Okay, all right. Let's explore that a little bit further. That's interesting. If we were to think about Malaysia engaging all these different stakeholders, not just, as you say, the State Administration Council, but also the National Unity Government of Myanmar. When we think about these different actors, engaging these different actors involved, what are the sensitivities, what are the nuances and the dynamics at play? How should Malaysia avoid pitfalls in its engagement, trying to engage with all these different stakeholders, bring different parties to the table?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. Of course, the Myanmar state at the moment is a highly contested state, right? And so, because of the military coup, you have a de facto power, the SAC, and I'm of the opinion that the engagement with the SAC should continue. I mean, there are people who, of course, argue that why even engage with the military junta? They are the culprits. We should not be even engaging with them. But I don't take that view. I think ASEAN accepts the fact that it is the de facto power, and we should continue that engagement. But at the same time, it's really important for us to deal with the different groups. Of course, as you correctly point out, there are certain dynamics. Even within the resistance, there are different sorts of forces. I cannot go into great detail here. Of course, it will take a very long time. But clearly, you have the NUG, which was the National Unity Government formed after the election. And it was the NLD, National League of Democracy, that won the election. But now they've grouped together other groups, other contenders, including opposition parties who had not won the election into this thing called the National Unity Government. So that's one level of engagement. Another level of engagement is with the ethnic armed organizations who are mounting insurrections against the state. And many of them actually control large swaths of land within Myanmar. In fact, after the 1027 Operation 1027, which was the beginning of the resistance against the military junta, many areas of in the periphery or the outer reaches of Myanmar have been controlled, are now under the control of, for example, the Three Brotherhood Alliance, Arakan, and the Northern Shan State. So that's those are the kinds of issues that Malaysia as chair to deal with. Indonesia, I think, did a good job. What you cannot do maybe is to bring them all into one round table. You can't, because this is not yet the time for doing that. But you can engage with these groups separately in different sorts of platforms.
And what would that realistically look like? So Malaysia is on the cusp of appointing a new special envoy for the ASEAN chair on Myanmar. What would you like to see this new emissary prioritize in terms of engaging these different types of stakeholders for multi-track diplomacy?
Well, let's first talk about that whole idea of the special envoy, because it is actually one of the 5-point consensus, right? The engagement of the special envoy with stakeholders. You see, the problem is the envoy rotates from year to year. And that presents, I think, a problem. I think many people have analyzed it. I'm not the first one. Many analysts have said this is a kind of a problem because there is no continuity in the positions that ASEAN takes, or, well, not necessarily the positions they take, but in terms of the kinds of things that you can bring forward. You know, what you gain in one sort of period, in one cycle, you lose in the next cycle. So important to keep that going. And I would say that the special envoy, many people have also suggested this, should be set up with, or should be locked in with a special office, which is permanent. Permanently dealing with, permanent in the sense that as long as the Myanmar crisis exists, we do have that special envoy office which deals with the Myanmar crisis. And then, you know, the special envoy himself or herself could surely rotate following the ASEAN procedure from year to year. So that what Malaysia, for example, brings to the table in 2025 as the ASEAN chair, or the envoy that Malaysia appoints, then is continued in the next round. You know what I mean? Along with, sorry, can I add just one more point? The idea of, connected to this, the idea of the Troika. The Troika arrangement is for the previous chair to work with the current chair, and then the current chair to work with the future chair. So that process, I think, is already in ASEAN. It already exists as a mechanism. In fact, our foreign minister, Muhammad Hassan, has actually mentioned that he wants to continue with the Troika process. So we should have this process, and maybe we could even say, make it a Troika plus. This is one of the ideas I have. We had a workshop, on Myanmar not so long ago in Kuala Lumpur, a closed-door one, and many people came up with this idea as well. The Troika plus would be not just the 3 chairs, but also other ASEAN members who may continue to have a strong interest in the Myanmar question.
Right. So our previous guest, Murtuzar, talked a little bit about how she thinks consistency and continuity is very important in the way ASEAN responds to the Myanmar crisis. But every ASEAN chair that comes along each year will want to make its own stamp on the issue, will want to try and do things a certain way. How do we reconcile that, the need for continuity and consistency, yet not seeing progress in the 5-point consensus, not seeing progress in addressing the crisis, and countries maybe looking at perhaps doing things differently? How do we think that through, Professor Johan?
Okay, thanks, Melisa. Difference is a good idea because difference sometimes bring about innovation. As long as those differences are actually recorded and kept as milestones, so there can be points of departure for progressing to the next stage and so on. So we don't kind of lose track of what has been done before, and that's exactly what we talked about, the idea that these things should continue. So Malaysia as chair, say Malaysia as chair, and this was one of the things that we talked about in our workshop. Say Malaysia as chair had introduced this idea of providing safe spaces, right? for Myanmar groups in a multi-track way, allowing for different groups. The NUCC, that also maybe the ethnic groups, as well as maybe civil society, groups, to have their own discussions, and in safe spaces, which means they do not come under the glare of publicity, they do not get surveilled by the military and so on. That particular development can be put down, even in a quiet sort of way, under quiet diplomacy. You don't have to reveal everything, and then pass on to the next the chair. So that then what has been achieved in those platforms under Malaysia would then be carried forward. That'll be one of the ideas that I have, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights on this matter with us. I appreciate your time. That was Professor Emeritus Johan Saravanamuttu from the Asia-Europe Institute, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.